the in-depth tour of the Portland Ogdensburg Railroad Part 2. In Part 1, we watched a Mountain Division train disappear into that tunnel portal furthest from the camera. But before we leave the lower deck completely, I'd like to point out another area that wasn't touched on in the first part. It's controlled by this little panel down here. The trackage in red shows a very simple arrangement here. Two parallel tracks that disappear off to the left side. They represent an interchange with the Grand Trunk Railroad. The two tracks that point straight down on that panel control the area here along the waterfront area, which includes the Main State Pier Warehouse and the Portland Transfer Company. The tracks that disappear back under the overpass are the Grand Trunk interchange tracks. You can just see the roof of the two SW7 switchers that normally work this area. Though the buildings here only bear a passing resemblance, all the industry names are taken from real-life businesses along Commercial Street in what is now the Old Port District of Portland. Trains entering the Mountain Division through that tunnel portal we just saw begin a grade of just over 2%, or a quarter-inch rise per foot of travel, and return to view about 5 inches higher than where we started in Portland. They continue the climb past the Mount Willard dwelling and into the helix. After completing 4 turns in the helix, the trains reappear at the gateway of Crawford Notch at the top of the grade. There is a pass track here at Crawford's, which will hold a 10-car train plus locomotive and caboose, as well as a siding for local freight. Track separation from the lower to the upper deck is approximately 19 inches. There is a track behind the hills at Crawford's that connects the south end of St. Johnsbury to the top of the helix. Multi-deck layouts have the attraction of much greater operational possibilities for a given space, but they're a compromise in that neither deck is at an ideal height. I have several step platforms in key locations for the upper deck operators to be able to see what they're doing. Also, multi-deck layouts are a nightmare for photography, so if that's your goal, you might prefer to stick with a single deck. Another case of no free lunch. Here our train is passing the ball signal at Whitefield and has an easy run along level track, round through a cut and into the town of St. Johnsbury. Once this train ties up in St. Johnsbury, we'll call a mechanical crew out and see if we can find which car has that nasty squeak. Now that we've arrived on the other side of the room, this is an opportunity for me to pan around a little bit, and you can see how the layout fits into the room. This is a peninsula that runs roughly 45-degree diagonal across the room from corner to corner. This is St. Johnsbury Yard in the foreground. You can see Commercial Street on the lower deck. The helix in the distance with the camera crane poking up out of the top of it right now. The Crawford Notch in the left distance. The blue thing hanging from the ceiling. You may spot a couple of those. Those are sky backdrops that we roll down for shooting some of our videos. You see the two control panels in St. Johnsbury, and the corner of the room. And if I pan around any more, I'll be in the shot because I'm standing on my workbench. And at this angle, you can see the waterfront area, the end of my workbench, and my removable seat that operators from or for St. Johnsbury and Commercial Street can use. Sort of a matter of making lemonade from lemons. This workbench that I'm standing on is a structural part of the room. There's actually a walkway underneath that comes in from the garage, and my air compressor and dust collector from my workshop are under that part of the workbench. So that was a given when I started laying out the room for the railroad. That stuff had to stay there. This room that we're in used to be my wood shop, and I appropriated it for model railroad use, and the wood shop got moved to a 4-post automotive lift in the garage. That may be a topic for another video in the future. And again, from this angle, at the top you see another rolled up sky backdrop, and in the corner of the room behind this double-sided backdrop and mound of rockwork and hill is an access hatch, and on the other side of the backdrop is Crawford Notch and the narrow shelf with Whitefield and the ball signal. But the main part of the layout on this side is the yard in St. Johnsbury, along with several industries here, which we'll cover in a little bit of detail. Something I'd like to point out at this time, and this pertains to pretty much the whole layout. If you look closely, you'll see uncoupling magnets, and next to all of the magnets, everywhere on the layout, there's a marker. In the yards, I've used 2-color LEDs. When a certain track is lined, usually the light is amber, and when it's not lined, it's red. There's a couple of exceptions to that. On the main line, when the switches are lined for the main line, the dwarf signal there is green. In some of the industries where a dwarf signal would make even less sense, the uncoupling magnets are marked with light posts. Almost all the uncoupling points are marked in this way, with either a light post for the industries or with a dwarf signal in the yard. Rigby Yard in Portland is set up the same way. The location of the dwarf is primarily for the convenience of the operator, and the fact that they change color is just kind of a bonus extra. A closer look at the main panel in St. Johnsbury. You'll see a 5-track yard, the passenger main line in blue, the freight main or pass track, however you want to refer to it, in black. Plus we have an industry at the end of this track, which is the St. Johnsbury locomotive servicing equipment, which would be sand and fuel. Siding for Allen Lumber, a siding for the ET and HKI, siding over here, which is Murray's Meat, which is a meat distributor, and a siding in here for Fairbanks Scales. So we've got a combination of trailing point and facing point industries to work, plus there's an auxiliary panel to my left, and I'll look at that in a moment, that has 2 locomotive service tracks and a fuel oil distributor over there. The green line over here goes over to the upper deck peninsula, headed straight away, pretty much straight away from the camera, which is North Walpole. That's the latest expansion on the layout, if you want to call it that. I didn't originally intend for that to be double-decked over there, but the temptation to have a place for steam locomotives was just overwhelming, and I decided I had to do it. Here's the little secondary panel that I mentioned, and you can see controls there for the tracks in green. This is an addition. One of the disadvantages of the way that I built my panels is once you've put them together, making modifications to the track plan is a bit of a task. It requires quite a bit of disassembly. They're made with 2 layers of plastic, with the track plan done with chart pack tape. So it looks rather nice. It's easy to clean. It lasts for a long time. But as I say, the downside is it's hard to make modifications to the track plan once you've built the panel. So no free lunch. Most of the industries on the upper deck have a real-life counterpart. ET and HKI is kind of a landmark in St. Johnsbury. Allen Lumber is a real industry. The Callbeck Cosgrove Corporation is real. Murray's Meat is real. Fairbanks Scales. I know Fairbanks is located in St. Johnsbury, but I have no idea what the real buildings look like. And the one that I dreamed up is over in the corner here. This was the addition that required the construction of the secondary panel, and that's the Northeast Kingdom Fuel. That industry is still under construction, so we'll take a closer look at that in the future after I do a little more work on it. I hope you enjoyed the tour. If you have any questions, I encourage you to ask in the comments section, and I'll do my best to answer. And we always appreciate it when you like and subscribe. So see you in the next video.